So, I have got a ton of ghost stories from the house I grew up in, but the only one that ever made me feel truly scared was this one. Happened when I was about 18. To give you the layout, my bedroom was on the opposite end of a long house, an old single level farmhouse from the rest of my family, with about a 6 foot hallway outside my door. It started with weird feelings, as in not feeling alone when I would walk into my room. The sensation of being watched and the sound of scratching on the hardwood floor outside my door. Now we had a cat in the house, so this wasn't out of the ordinary, and I brushed off all of it at first. But then things picked up. If I had my door open, I would see a shadow shifting in the hallway even during the day. I would be hit with the sensation of someone reaching for me, not actually grabbing me, but as if someone was trying to, and their hand just brushed me. There would be nights my cat would be curled up on the bed with me, looking at my closed door, and I would still hear the scratching. And then came the night I actually saw her. And I know this is going to sound cliche, but she looked like the girl from The Ring. Stereotypical white dress, black hair, angry looking woman ghost you see in the horror movies, right outside my bedroom door. She was just standing there glaring at me like she wanted to kill me. I don't even think I screamed. My body just moved by itself, and I was out of bed and slamming that door closed so fast. Apparently, she didn't like that because I kept hearing her moving and scratching under the door for hours afterward. I did a quick cleansing of that hallway the next morning. Can't tell you how much I did not want to open my door. Was pretty sure she would be right there. Told her in no uncertain terms that she absolutely was not wanted there and had to leave, and I never had an issue in that hallway again. Still not sure why she seemed contained to that particular section of the house or why she was so intent on trying to terrifying me. If anyone has any ideas, I would love to hear them. It's still something that bugs me years down the road. I have a long, dark hallway in my house. Before I go to bed, I always turn off the bathroom light, then the hall light, and then I walk those last few steps to my bedroom in darkness. Some nights I feel like something is creeping up behind me from down the hall. It's ridiculous, I know. I'm a grown up, so with sensible maturity, I have always ignored the feeling. I never check over my shoulder. I just hold my breath, slip into my bedroom, and calmly shut the door. Tonight, I sensed something in the hallway again, except it didn't creep, it ran. I heard the pounding footsteps, the air rushing past its body. I managed to get into my bedroom and close the door just before that thing slammed into it from the other side. I have locked the door and pushed my dresser in front of it. The window has security bars, so going out that way isn't an option. I can't call 911 because my phone's still in the bathroom charging. So far, nobody's heard me when I scream out the window. I'm too scared to sleep, too tired not to. I have to stay awake. I keep shouting, go away, and every single time that thing smashes into my bedroom again. My voice is scratchy now from yelling, go away. Crash. I don't really want it to go away. I wanted to keep bashing my door all night because until I think of a better plan, it's better than hearing it run away down the hall towards my baby's room. When I was a little boy, maybe about 7 or 8, and I lived in a small apartment. When we lived in the apartment, it was next to my school, and after school, I would go home, do my homework, and go to sleep. But sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and wouldn't be able to fall back to sleep, and most of the time, I would be really tired when I went to school. So, one night on a dark and windy Saturday, I fell asleep early like I normally do on weekends. But this day wasn't normal. I wake up later than I normally do, maybe around 2:45 or 3:14. I didn't have a phone at the time, but I did have my toy watch that was mostly accurate about the time. So I looked at my watch to see what time it was, and then I see something move at my doorway. I glanced up quickly, and what I saw was scary to say the least because I was still a little kid and I knew that what I have seen wasn't human. The thing that I had seen was a tall black male, maybe about 6'5", and probably in his mid 30s, holding a suitcase, just standing there watching my every move. I didn't understand at the time. I thought it was my dad just watching me to see if I was okay. But I thought wrong. When I opened my mouth to say, "Dad, what are you doing standing at my door watching me sleep?" I wonder. But when I said that, it seemed that his head moved to stare at me, and when this happened, it felt like something entered my soul and I felt dizzy but still awake. Again, I opened my mouth to say, "Dad, is that you?" I asked while scared and confused. A minute later, I said, "Mom, is that you? You're scaring me. Please say something." I spoke in a serious but scared voice. I got no response. At this moment, I was scared and didn't know what to do because there was an absolute stranger in my house, even worse, a demon. I was absolutely terrified and couldn't say a word. So all I can do was stare into its never-ending darkness. I blacked out and I don't remember much after that, but one thing that I found out was that same night my mom woke up to a figure that looked exactly like me running in an unhumanly way, running to her on all fours. And when she turned to wake my dad up, I was gone. Later on the next day, I had multiple deep scratches on me. We moved out of the apartment. When I turned 12, we moved into a nice house. We still live into it to this day, and I'm 14 at the moment and about to turn 15. My husband, our kids, and myself live in a small flat. The living room doubles up as our bedroom, and our kids share the actual bedroom. One night about 1 year ago, I was awake at around 3:30 a.m. reading Reddit as I couldn't get back to sleep. I am positive I was wide awake. I wake up at around this time a lot. Anyway, I was reading when I heard running in the hallway. I thought it was my son running in, so I scooted over and braced myself for him jumping in. Except the footsteps stopped at the door. He never usually tries to sleep next to us, so I thought that was unusual as well. I thought to myself that he should have reached the bed by now. I then realized I didn't hear any footsteps running back towards the bedroom, so I went to investigate. Both my kids were fast asleep, and the baby gate was actually closed. It definitely couldn't have been my daughter as she was in a cot and couldn't climb out anyway. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, my sister slept over on the couch. She was awake at about half 3 in the morning and reading on her phone. I was fast asleep at this point actually. I was awakened by the sound of my son crying and whimpering, so I ran to check on him and he was still asleep. I thought he was having a bad dream. He had stopped crying as soon as I popped my head around the door. At this point, we no longer have a baby gate. I walked back into the living room and my sister told me she heard a door opening slowly and then shuffling in the hallway. I feel like it's important to note that the kids' bedroom is always open as my daughter is terrified of the door being closed. This is a very recent fear. Then the shuffling turned into walking down the hallway until it stopped at the living room door again. Again, no footsteps back. When footsteps stopped at the door, that's when my son started crying and I got up to check him. Daughter was fast asleep. I hope all of this makes sense. Unfortunately, my daughter is absolutely terrified of her bedroom now and screams whenever we try to put her back to bed. In the last 2 weeks, she's been waking up and running in to sleep next to us. She cries as she runs down the hallway, so we always know when it's our daughter. I am putting it down to our overactive imagination, but she keeps saying there are shadows or ghosts. But I just thought these experiences were strange, and I'm glad my sister could experience it too. So, I have had this really weird story that I always think about when I read any paranormal stories, and I don't think anyone I have ever told believes me. To make it worse, I don't think anyone involved remembers it, but here it goes anyway because I want you guys to tell me what happened. Okay, so anyway, when I was a kid, maybe between 8 and 10, if I had to guess, I went to the dentist and got a balloon after the checkup. The balloon had on the front a cartoon dentist with the office phone number and address under it. Nothing unusual. I would probably gotten them 100 times. Well, anyway, at night, as a kid, I would always sleep with my hallway light on, and this night, I watched this balloon drift down the hallway, stop by my room, and rotate so the cartoon dentist's face is looking at me. I'm actually getting chills thinking of this, but the balloon wasn't like floating along the ceiling either. It was like shoulder height. So anyway, this really creeped me out. So I walked down the hallway and put it in my brother's room. He wasn't there. I am assuming he maybe was either at a friend's or maybe sleeping downstairs. I don't remember. But anyway, this happened multiple times. I can't recall how many, but after enough of it, I finally closed my brother's door after putting the balloon back and went to sleep. The next morning, still kind of weirded out, I went back to check on the balloon and it was popped on my brother's floor. Not only that, but I remember picking it up and just feeling really bad that it had popped. I told my dad about it and he said maybe it was his grandfather or his dad, I can't remember which, who always told him they wanted to meet his kids but passed away too soon. After that, I never had any other strange/ paranormal activity in my house. If it really was my dad's family member, I hope I didn't hurt them, and if I did, I hope they know I am sorry. This happened back when I was 13. Me, my mom, my sister, and brother decided to go on vacation in Morocco. At first, we wanted to rent an apartment for ourselves, but my grandma, who lives there, invited us to stay at her 70-year-old home. Me and my siblings hesitated because we heard about the stories that happened in that home, faint voices, footsteps, etc. etc. My mom changed our mind and brushed the stories off. She claimed they were lies to scare us. We told her if we experienced something creepy, we would immediately leave the house and stay at our aunt's house. But for now, the vacation has started. We went to the beach nearly daily. We went shopping and bought a lot of souvenirs. And we chilled at the house. One night, we tried to sleep, but it was just way too hot. Temperatures were around 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. We decided to sleep on the roof. It's not really a roof, it's an open roof room at the top of the house. We cleaned the floor first and laid down the mattresses and blankets. My brother fell asleep first, then my sister, and at last myself. I slept quite well for a couple hours. There was a light breeze and it was quiet. Until the silence was broken by someone calling my name. It was a soft and soothing voice. I slowly opened my eyes and stood up to walk to the door. I first answered with a yes. Who is calling me? To no reply, then I walked to the stairs and leaned over the railing to look down. What I saw, I have never told anyone. I looked down and saw a girl in a white dress looking back up. Her neck was looking so far up it looked inhuman. Then the girl just turned around and walked away until I could not see her anymore. I decided to shut up and try to get some sleep, but I couldn't. I don't know who that was, and I was recently starting to believe in the rumors about this home. Recently, my grandma told me about a 12-year-old girl that had unalived herself by jumping off the roof we were sleeping on. I was shocked and was 100% sure that the girl I encountered that day was the one. Backstory: I was around 5 or 7 years old when this happened. I lived with my mom and my two sisters. I would see my dad on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house next to a funeral home. I used to share a room with one of my sisters, and when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would always run into my mom's room and sleep with her because I was scared. Now on to the story. I came home one night from my dad's house. After a short while of being home, probably 20 to 30 minutes, I decided that I'm going to act like I'm sleeping in my bed, and when my mom comes to check on me, I'm going to scare her. So I crawled into my bed, and for some reason I immediately passed out. I woke up around 1:30 a.m. I ran to my mom's room as I always did out of fear. I don't know why I was always scared in this house at night, but it was every night. I got into her room and for some reason she's not in there. I checked the living room and she's not there either. I then realized she probably went to stay the night at her boyfriend's. I immediately booked it right back into my room and jumped into my bed. A few minutes passed and now I am even more scared because I remember that my sister, whom I shared a room with, isn't here because she stayed the night at her friend's. After probably 5 minutes, I start to hear pots and pans banging in the kitchen. When I heard this, I went under the blankets right away. This goes on for about 10 minutes and the whole time it's happening, I'm pinching and punching myself because I was convinced it was a dream, which I soon find out that it wasn't. A few minutes after, the continuous noise stopped. I came out from under the blankets and in the hallway directly across my bed, there's a man hanging before my sister's room. I can't see his head, but I can see the rest of his body. He's wearing a blue tucked in dress shirt, black dress pants and black dress shoes. Right after I seen that, I think I just kind of stared in pure terror and I went back under my blankets and eventually fell asleep. I told my mom and my sister about it the next day and they were freaked out. We moved out approximately around 6 months later into my mom's boyfriend's house. Now I'm 18, about to turn 19. When I think back on when this happened, I think that it was a spirit from the funeral home, considering how he was dressed. It's weird because my friend's grandma lives in that house now and they haven't experienced anything. But that memory will always stick with me. Edit. I was not home alone. One of my teenage sisters was there in the room across from mine. I just moved into a new apartment a few weeks ago. The building is old but quiet. My neighbors are friendly and everything seemed normal until the first night. Night 1. I woke up around 2 a.m. to faint footsteps in the hallway. I live on the second floor and the apartment across the hall has been empty for months. At first I thought I was imagining it, but the footsteps kept pacing back and forth for at least 10 minutes. Night 2. The footsteps returned, louder this time. I got out of bed and peered through the peephole. The door across the hall was slightly open, even though I had checked it was locked that morning. I didn't see anyone, but I felt watched. Night 3. I decided to set up my phone to record. Around 3 a.m., the camera caught a shadow passing in front of the doorway, too tall and thin to be a normal person. I froze. The shadow paused, then slowly retreated into the dark apartment. I checked the building logs. No one entered that unit. Night 4. Whispers started. At first, I couldn't make out the words. Then I heard it clearly. You shouldn't be here. The voice was soft, deliberate, almost inside my head, but coming from the empty apartment. I stayed awake all night, every sound amplified. Night 5. I had to know what was happening. I walked toward the hallway, phone flashlight on. As I reached the door across the hall, the whispers stopped. Silence. I opened the door just a crack and the apartment was empty. Completely empty. But then I noticed footprints in the dust on the floor, leading to the back corner. And there on the wall were words scratched into the paint. I see you. Night 6. I couldn't sleep. I stayed on the couch with the lights on. Around midnight, I felt something brush past me. My phone flashlight revealed a tall figure standing at the far end of the apartment, motionless, staring. I blinked and it was gone. Night 7. I decided I couldn't stay. I packed essentials, but before leaving, I took one last look across the hall. The door was closed A small handprint appeared on the glass of my peephole as if someone or something had been watching me leave. I moved out the next day. I don't know what was in that apartment. I don't know if it was alive. But every time I think about it, I feel the same chilling stare I felt in those 7 nights. My wife and I had a repeated unexplained experience over several years, usually late at night and quite often just we had gotten into bed. We would hear what sounded like children running up and down our corridor. Of course, we had none. This was 10 plus years ago. The house we were in was built in the 80s but had been renovated in the mid zeros to include an extension of a large living room, extra bedroom, and ensuite. These joined the rest of the house by a short passageway, a room away from our bedroom. The sound would sometimes begin in the middle of the night. One of us would wake the other. For me, it was with a sensation of confusion and creeping fear. It clearly sounded like someone small and light, maybe two of them, running up and down the hallway that joined the original house and the extension. We would sit up in bed and listen for minutes on end, thump, 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 and then, as if turning, running back up the hallway. In my memory, I can feel the hair on the back of my neck sticking up while listening to it and staring wide eyed at each other through the dark in utter disbelief at what we were hearing. And of course, any investigation would reveal only silence. As soon as you would take a step towards the hall, the noise would stop. This happened so often it stopped being a surprise. My wife told me a story tonight, which is what prompted me to post this for the first time. That one weekend while I was away, the noise was so loud and persistent that she had to shut the door just to sleep. The house had apparently only had one owner previously. Nobody had died in the home, a fact which was independently researched by the owners after we told them. The owners were both in the police force and had the means to confirm this type of queries. It's something we talk about today over a decade later, and we are just as confused now as we were then. Edit. The thing that confuses us the most about this is there seems to be of no connection to death or trauma we usually associate with this kind of phenomenon. Has anyone ever heard of something like this happening? When I was about 18 years old, I had this ex who I would often visit at his trailer home. He was still living with his parents and his younger siblings at the time. On this particular day, his family was out of the house for some event, so we were the only ones in the home. Now, I have to explain the layout of the home in order to have you understand why this messed with us so bad. It was sort of like a rectangle. In order to go to his room, you would have to walk down this narrow little hallway. We were just hanging out in his room watching TV. I was laying on the bed while he was on the floor for some reason. I can't remember too well. I was starting to fall asleep when I see him turn his head towards his bedroom door. I asked him if he heard something and he shushed me. He then tells me that he thought he had heard something but then continued doing what he was doing. He then joined me on the bed and we just lay there watching TV. I see my ex perk up again and sits up on the bed. I muted the TV and was trying to listen to whatever he kept hearing. I heard creaking, like someone was in the living room walking around. We assumed that his family got home and so we just continued to watch whatever show was on at the time. As soon as I was about to unmute the TV, we heard running. You know how in scary movies there's always the scene when they hear that phantom running towards them. That's what we felt like in that moment. The running footsteps get louder and louder, each step sounding like whoever running was digging their feet in order to mark it. We were just in the room looking at each other and just waiting for someone to burst through the door. The running then came to a stop once they reached the door. It sounds kind of silly, but believe me, we were fucking terrified. Just the way it sounded, each step just getting louder and louder, and the way we were able to feel the vibrations coming off of it. My ex then asked me if I had heard that. I nodded yes, but tried to cover it up with a lame excuse saying, Oh, maybe it was coming from the trailer next door. I didn't want to admit to him that I was scared shitless. I went home a little after that happened and got a text from him. He texted, "Do you really think that came from the other trailer?" I texted him back and told him, "I'm sorry. I admitted. I did hear it and it scared the shit out of me. That's why I left." Nothing like that ever happened again during the time we were together. He did mention that a couple months later they were working on something underneath the trailer. He and his dad ended up finding remains. They called the police to pick them up. They came and never heard anything back since then.